Let's shift the paradigm to prioritize our peace and focus on the positive while creating balance to make living our best life the ultimate goal. We'll talk boundaries, self-care, mental health, and overcoming obstacles. You'll hear interviews and fresh perspectives to support you along the way. Let's elevate the conversation and level up our self-growth game. This is the Piece of Me podcast. What better way to start season 3 and the new year than having the very first episode actually be on January 1st? Now, I could not have planned that any better if I tried. So happy New Year. I hope that you were coming back from the holidays in good spirits. I hope that you had some time to relax and rest and just kind of recharge your batteries. The holidays can be very stressful, so hopefully they were good to you and hopefully you are feeling good too. Now, hi friends, it's Lexy Leigh. If you are new here, welcome to the Piece of Me podcast. And if you are not, then welcome back. And thanks for coming back to help me kick off season 3 and 2024. Now, we have a lot to dive into with today's episode. So if you can, grab yourself a cup of your favorite beverage and get comfortable. But if you are commuting or driving, crank the heat and let's get cozy. Now, in November, I posted a recap from Spotify on the Piece of Me podcast Instagram page, and I was a bit surprised at what it showed me. Now, in just 11 months, the Piece of Me podcast was made a top 10 podcast by 80 listeners. And then it was the number 1 podcast for 30 listeners. And that's not counting the other platforms that this podcast streams on. There is also Pandora and Apple, Google, Amazon, and iHeart, to name a few. So I just want to once again express my utmost gratitude and say thank you for being here. There are so many podcast choices out there, and I personally feel it's my responsibility to continue to deliver content that you want to listen to so that you keep coming back. So it's no easy task, and I do not take you as my listener for granted. So I really appreciate any downloads, streaming, listening, or even sharing the show with people that you know. Now, in today's episode, it will be a 2-parter. The first part is kind of what's in store for 24 on the show. So what topics can you expect to hear, and who are you going to hear them from? And the second part is a conversation with this week's guest talking about motivation, self-care, and health and wellness goals as we kind of tie in those New Year's resolutions or intentions. Now, as we jumpstart January on the podcast, I'm going to ask you for a quick favor. On the top of your podcast page, whether you're listening on Spotify or Apple or somewhere else, there will likely be a follow button, or it might be a check mark. It might even be 3 little round dots that are all next to each other. And if you click on that, it should allow you to follow this podcast. Now, if you would please hit that follow button on your podcast page. When you do that, it just keeps this show in your podcast library, so it makes it easier for you to find it later on and also be notified whenever there is a new episode that's released. Now, for me, I am all about convenience, so this is a really easy way to find the show fast. Now, I don't text and drive, but I do stream and drive, and there is nothing more annoying than looking forward to listening to a podcast episode and then not being able to find it or fumbling around trying to figure out where the download went. So, fun fact, if you do download an episode before you leave your house, then you're not using the data on your phone. So if you can, download before you go. Now, a few housekeeping things to kind of get out of the way before we actually really dive in here. All of the Piece of Me podcast social links are going to be in the show and episode descriptions. And I spend the most of my time on Instagram, so that's a really great place to stay connected and even get a little bit more content because I am the most active on Instagram. Now, I'm also on TikTok and YouTube as well. And if you can, leave some love by subscribing or following and liking there as well. And you also have a chance to connect directly with me through my website. So if you have a show idea or there's topics that you'd like to hear, maybe you want to be a guest, you can send me a message directly through my website, which is pieceofmepodcast.com. All right, so all of that stuff out of the way, what can you expect on the podcast? Well, Some things are going to stay the same. Episodes will still come out each week on Mondays. And of course, the guests. We have some new guests obviously coming on the show. We're going to have some national and international guests. We have some new authors. We have other podcasters and a lot of new folks, but we're also going to catch up with some of our previous guests just to kind of see what they're up to since we've last checked in with them. We're going to talk about relationships and breakups, healing and self-care, finances, that one's coming up as well, meditation, weight gain and weight loss, some of the pressures that come from society. We're going to talk body positivity, mental health, children, dating, parenting, and much more. So we got a lot of stuff coming, a lot of good stuff coming your way. Now, I did want to kind of touch on next week's episode as well, because it's kind of a special one, as it's my birthday. So birthdays always seem to be a really good time to reflect. And I decided to do a solo episode to just kind of share my personal goals for the new year. So I'm going to not get into them in this episode, but I will save them for next week's episode. And I'm going to kind of reflect on 2023 and what I'm looking forward to. And I'm also going to get into kind of my thoughts on my own personal weight gain and weight loss, what I'm giving up, what I'm giving away, what I'm letting go of. And I kind of mentioned this as well in my last episode in December, but there is a kind of a, I guess she's more of a podcaster, but a celebrity mindset trick that I heard about through another podcast. And it's a really easy trick that will help you kind of let go of the control and help you reduce your stress and anxiety. And it's been working. It's taking me, some time to really adopt it, but I catch myself and it's very helpful. So I want to share that with you in case you haven't already heard. So that's coming up as well. And here we are. It's 2024. And it always kind of takes a little bit of time to kind of dig yourself out of the fog of the holidays. It's not a light switch. Just because the calendar flips to a new year, it doesn't mean that our minds or our bodies do too. So if you're like me, you might still have holiday decorations out. You might still have wrapping paper in the corners of the houses. There might be toys that haven't been put away and, cardboard and boxes everywhere. That's all normal. There's just so much going on at the end of the year and even at the beginning of the year. So give yourself some grace. Now, on the last episode of the podcast, I did make an announcement and I shared it with you, my listeners, first, but I've decided that I'm going to mention it again just in case you missed it. So I have personally designed a tool that will move with you through 2024. Now, I created this to help support you and help you make this your best year yet. And, I have created what I am now calling the Piece of Me Journal. So you've heard me talk a lot about journaling and how just, putting pen to paper is incredibly therapeutic. And it's also very clarifying because really seeing what you write about your own, I talk about pattern popping in a previous episode, but seeing what you talk about and allowing your thoughts and your hand to kind of make that connection, what comes out on the page. It's very clarifying. There's a lot of epiphany moments in that reflection. So there are a few episodes here on the podcast about journaling, and I get into, kind of how to start, kind of help you get going. But there are also free journal prompts on my website as well for you to use. So just go to pieceofmepodcast.com. You can go on there and grab them. But what I wanted to mention when it came to designing this journal, when I look at what other journals exist and kind of how they're designed, what I didn't like is that, journals were kind of either a blank notebook or they are so full of prompts that it's kind of one or the other. One, you're either checking these boxes every single day and, at first it's kind of fun, but there's no freedom to go anywhere besides that. You're just kind of answering these questions of how did you sleep? How many glasses of water? And those are great too. If that's your thing, that's fine. But for me, I needed a little bit of freedom. I need a little bit of space to kind of get creative. In the blank notebooks, if you're feeling stuck or, maybe you don't know what to write about, you're kind of have that writer's block, you might need a little bit something else. So it was really important to me to create a journal that combined the two. So I wanted there to be a balance. So the Piece of Me journal actually blends writing with wellness. And Not only does it have journal prompts in there, but it also has wellness exercises. There's a goal setting section. There's also a hardcover design, which is very important because if you want to journal on the couch, now you have a hard surface to write on. If you want to take it to the coffee shop, it works there too. So the hardcover design from the coffee shop to the couch, it's going to be convenient. And I also made sure that it has a larger than average layout. So the average journal size is just a little bit smaller than the Piece of Me journal. So I think size does help when it comes to your writing because it's easier to write on a little bit of a bigger space. Now, the other thing that was really important, again, as I mentioned that freedom to write, I also included over 100 lined pages. So over 100 lined pages are included in this journal as well. And it's on Amazon. Yeah, it's on Amazon right now. So the easiest way to find it though, because Amazon, sometimes it's hard to find things. I've made it super simple. All you have to do is go to my website, which is pieceofmepodcast.com. There is a section right on my website called Journal. And when you go there, you will see it. The link will take you to Amazon so you can go and buy yourself a copy. Now, I also have chosen to give this journal special pricing for 2024, and it's $24. Yeah, so it's $24 for 2024, 24 and 24. And I really, when we start with this new year and we are, looking at this fresh year ahead and, there's so much choice in the direction we choose to take and, the goals that we set for ourselves or, maybe the things we need to heal from or the things we need to recover from. There's a lot of stuff that we're all working through and working on. So I do hope that if you are buying yourself a planner, you should also be investing in a new journal as well. This is part of your own self-care, your own health and wellness. So I hope that you do choose to invest in yourself and make yourself a priority this year because you do deserve that. So once again, my website is pieceofmepodcast.com. Now, I shared in my last episode that 48% of people will set multiple resolutions in the new year, but 80% of those resolutions or goals will be forgotten by February. So I wanted to bring someone on the show who helps inspire others, someone who understands that motivation won't always be there. Now, my guest today is TJ. He's a personal trainer, fitness instructor, and a brand ambassador who is focused on coaching others on their own health and wellness journeys. Now, you may not actually be focusing on fitness right now, but you might be looking for a little motivation to help you get out of that holiday fog and just kind of get your goals going again. Now, in this episode, a lot of what TJ shares can apply to other areas in life, which is why I wanted to share this conversation right now. Now, we might have some new year, new motivation, but we'll need more than that if we don't want our resolutions to be part of that 80% stat that fade by February. So if you're looking for some tips to get going again, or if you're here to just soak up some inspiration, this episode is for you. So let's take a listen. Hi, TJ. Welcome to the Piece of Me podcast.
Hey, Lexy. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. I'm so glad you're here. And I know we talked a little bit offline, but I'm really excited to have you on because this is the time of year where people are getting out of the holiday fog and they're trying to get going again. And, it's winter, it's cold out, and the days feel short. And maybe they're not feeling so motivated. So we're going to get into some of that stuff today. But before we do, can you just tell us a little bit about yourself first, like who you are, what you got going on?
Yeah. Again, thanks for having me. I'm TJ. I'm a fitness instructor and a founder of tjiFridayFitness in upstate New York. I've been a fitness instructor, a personal trainer for about 5 years, training to be a fitness instructor for 7. And my husband and I moved right before COVID to the upstate area from New York, where in New York, my passion was studio fitness. So finding fun, different ways to move my body at SoulCycle or Barry's Boot Camp or any of these other fun, different ways to move our body.
Love it. Love it. And what a change, right? From going probably from the city to upstate, especially during the pandemic. I mean, that had to be a little challenging.
Yeah, well, I convinced him to move up from the city because we were coming up here every weekend for our leisure time. And I was like, what if we lived here and went to the city for our leisure time? And convinced him to move here the month before COVID had shut everything down.
Get
So I'm telling
out.
him about all the festivals and shows and shopping and all the friends he's going to make. And then it was the two of us in an apartment for however many months
Oh my gosh.
in
So
a
it's just
place
meant
that
to
he did not
be.
know.
So, okay. So you obviously, you work with clients from, probably various backgrounds and whatnot, but let's talk about motivation because this is it's such a hard thing. Like people might want to be motivated, but sometimes they don't have that motivation. So do you have, when you're trying to find that motivation, what advice do you have to give to the listeners to just kind of get going again?
Yeah, you know what? Motivation is something that you only find when the stars are aligned, right? Like motivation is magic. We've felt it. We've all had it. Especially at this time of year when everyone's starting the new me, right? And they have this idea of what they want to look like or what they want to do or why they might want to get fit. I find that a lot of people are lacking that like specificity in what they want, right? Some people want to lose weight. Some people want to be strong. But why? For what? Lose weight to wear what? Gain strength to do something. For a long time, I struggled with weight loss on my own. And it was hard to find motivation because it ended up not being the right why on me. My reason for why was not good. So what I really like to push forward in this new year for my clients and for myself and for anybody who's listening is make sure you know why you want something. Not just that you want it, but the very specific why. Is it to run a race, which is, where I found my strength and my training and my desire to be a trainer. All of that came from me running a race. I just signed up one day because I thought, hey, I would like a medal, and I trained for that. And it turned out that all my other goals fell in line with that. So I ended up losing weight accidentally because I was training for something beyond just a generic goal of losing weight or just a generic goal of being strong.
So you're saying find your why and like really dig deep and figure out like what's giving you this kind of spark to get into a health and fitness journey to begin with.
Absolutely, because you may not always have the motivation, but you do have the discipline. So if you have a race coming up or you have an event coming up, that very specific event, that very specific goal, if it's got a time to it, you have that discipline to attack it when you don't have that magic motivation to attack it.
I love that. It's almost like your motivation may come and go, but your why is always going to be there.
Because that's part of who you are, right? And that comes, the other thing I love to coach people in is, I don't coach people specifically for weight loss because it's not healthy psychologically. What I coach people is to their healthier self. And I ask people, what do you see yourself doing when you're your best self? And usually all of those habits that don't contribute to that fall to the side. And all of the habits that we can add and develop, they tend to become more frequent. Because as you know, habits are really what make us who we are.
Yep.
Right?
I love that.
Why, that very clear decision that every day I'm that person who gets up and does my sweat or my lift. It's a lifestyle. It takes time, but it's not, I find that that's so much better than your new resolution, new me. It's so generic. It's the new me that ran this race and also wanted to go hiking in Costa Rica, or the new me that wanted to wear this outfit so I could match my friends on this fun event that we had together, right? Like that specific.
Mm-hmm. So get specific with it. Yeah, I really love that. That's such a good tip. And I think too, and I'll just add this in here. New Year's resolutions, a lot of times weight loss is one of those top goals for people. So, and by no means, if you're listening to this, are we saying that should be your goal? Because we were just kind of talking offline that we don't want to, put the wrong idea out there either. We want people to just,
Right.
if they're looking for some kind of motivation, and I think this almost even applies to, even if you're not on a health or, fitness journey, that if you're just trying to find motivation in life, right? Like figure out your why and figure out something more specific there. Like it goes deeper than maybe something that's surface level. So I think what you're going to say is like could apply to other things. Here's a good question. If somebody does say, 2024 is my year, I want to be on this health and wellness, fitness journey. I want to be a better version of myself, but maybe they're not feeling very positive, especially if it does have to do with their appearance. How do people how do they stay body positive when they're in the process? They're on the journey, or they're just starting the journey and they're feeling the least body positive possible.
I think that really does tie back into what we just said about the why. As someone who's struggled with loving yourself, there's a lot to unload in that question. But it has to come from a place of love, right? It has to come from a place of, I want better because, right? Even if you're feeling down on yourself,
mm-hmm.
And where you are, I understand that you can't just be like, oh, well, now I'm body positive, so now I'm feeling bright and I'm going to go get it.
Mm-hmm.
But knowing who you are and what you want and why you want it, it really stems back to you have to give yourself love to say, as you would a child, say, hey, self, like, listen, we need to make a better choice for tomorrow so that way we can be happier version of ourselves and love ourselves more. It's hard to preemptively love yourself.
Mm-hmm.
But nobody ever got anywhere, as far as I know, on self-hatred, or negativity. We really need to speak it into existence, right? That's like part of my old school manifestation background. Speak it into existence about why you need to do better for yourself. Give yourself that love. Give yourself a little bit of grace. It's not going to be perfect, especially with people who are doing these resolutions. Instead of swarming yourself with all the things you should do, add a little bit of things that, out of love for yourself, a bit at a day, just a little bit every day.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that will really build habits that last longer, rather than trying to do a whole revamp of something that we weren't in love with before.
Good point. And you just mentioned something a moment ago, and I don't know if you feel comfortable talking about this, but you said that you had been on your own health journey, that you had lost weight, and that you've kind of had to work through some stuff too. So did you find, especially because I think people who, maybe are seeking out somebody who can help them with this journey, you've been through it yourself. I mean, you've already, you had to go through the whole process too. So is there anything even from your own personal experience that you can share, or any advice from that perspective, maybe having been through all this stuff yourself?
Yeah, mine was self-discovery. I was a bartender and a performer, right? In the city. And when you're living that bartender, restaurant worker life, and again, that's a wonderful community as well, but it's not necessarily always the healthiest. And I stumbled upon SoulCycle was the first studio fitness that I had found that it brought me joy. I had one experience that made me feel good enough to go back. I went back, and then I went back. So that 45 minutes was just a touch daily, right? Or every other day, or whatever I was able to do, against that bartending that was who I was and how I was defining myself and what I spent most of my day doing. And then all of a sudden I realized I was doing more of the SoulCycle and then I'd add other studios on. This is, not a SoulCycle commercial. It is, I found something that made me feel good. I found something that made me happy for 45 minutes, once every few days, then once every day. And then I decided, you know what? Why don't I dive in? Why don't I stop dabbling in what brings me joy? And I started working at the front desk. Take classes for free. I engulfed myself with people who also were finding joy in this same place, right? Mm-hmm. And from there, it snowballed. I was like, you know what? I should check out all these other studios. That snowball effect of joy. I always say this, and I don't remember where I first saw this, but find what makes you happy and go there. It's as simple as that when it comes to, I'm not happy. I'd like to be happy. Let me find that transition. And you have to experiment. I was scared the first time I went to a class, but I loved it. And I was, it's a feeling that you discover and you crave. And then that's where that, remember that motivation. Maybe I don't always feel motivated to work out, but I definitely always have that craving to be a rock star, to be an athlete, right? So if you know that feeling, become addicted to that.
Why dabble in the things that bring you joy? Why just dabble? Like if you enjoy something, why are you dabbling in it, right?
Well, 100%. And people show up to these classes that I teach or the sessions, and they're like, I feel amazing. This is awesome. I wish I didn't have to go to work. I hate that for people, right? Like how you show up for 45 minutes of fitness isn't just who you are when you're doing fitness, right? Like you can apply that elsewhere. I turned a career out of it. I said, I don't ever want to not feel like a rock star during an hour that I have to work. So let me do this full time.
Yeah, I love that. So speaking of your, making this your career, I mean, you've trained several clients. So let's talk a little bit. I mean, we talked about motivation, we talked about the why, we've talked about we're kind of like these things I think kind of thread together in different ways, but how do, from the clients that you have trained, how do you build the confidence, I guess, from the beginning to the end? Because I would think the confidence is going to come, as they get stronger and they get more into it, they feel like a rock star, like you said. But how do you give, like when you were mentioning how the first studio class that you took, I mean, that had to be intimidating to go into SoulCycle or whatever it might have been. And you see these people who it's probably been their however many classes they've taken. This is your first one. It's got to be a little bit scary. You're like, what am I getting myself into? But how do you help your clients with the confidence piece?
I don't want to sound like a broken record, but here's the thing. When I went to that class, or if I were to go to any new class, there are still times that I'm scared fitness wise. I'm running my first marathon in January 7th. So you can't be considered brave, which is something that I've always considered myself. So when I talk specifically about who I am, I'm a brave person. There's a lot of stuff about me, but also brave is one of them. And you can't be brave if you don't go somewhere scary. That's the thing. People always think, no, that's really scary. Right. And that you could see it as a scary scenario, or you can see it as the opportunity to be brave.
So kind of flip your perspective on it.
Flip the perspective. Yeah, it's scary, but it's also brave of you. That makes you a brave person. And that comes with being, a lot of people talk the talk. Are you willing to walk the walk? Lots of people can say that they're brave, but actions speak louder than words. And you have to go someplace scary to prove that you're brave.
Yeah, there's a saying, what is it? You have to go somewhere you've never been. You have to go, how does that go? Like to go somewhere you've never been, you got to go somewhere. I think maybe people listening might know where I'm going with that one, but you're right. You have to try new things,
see it
right?
in my head, I just can't.
Yes, I know. I'm like, I want to Google search it right now.
I have it on a magnet somewhere. And here's the other thing. Let's bring it back to that motivation, right? Once you show up to one spin class, if you do what you always do in that spin class, all right, well, you've done it. right? And that's
Mm-hmm.
something that keeps motivation is how do I challenge myself now that I've achieved it? You know,
Mm-hmm.
we have to walk before we run, and then we have to run the 5K before we do the 10K. Then we run the 10K before we do the half marathon, and fingers crossed before we run that marathon, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And so definitely for all of your listeners, one of my biggest things is that you always have to go someplace scary in order to move forward, to make things
Mm.
less scary. So that's from the new person to fitness to the experienced. If it's not
Mm-hmm.
challenging you, then you're not in the right place.
I like that. If it's not challenging you, then you're not in the right place. And that's again, like that can apply to so many other areas of life, like not even just fitness. I mean, maybe it's your job and it should be challenging or,
Your
a passion
job, your
project, right?
relationship,
Yes.
everything. And that's, again, if we're unhappy with who we are or how we look, usually it comes back to something else that's going on in our life that's not just who we are and how we look, right? It could be our job, it could be our
Mm.
relationship. Um, Again, you have to be specifically who you want to be, and you have to be specific about putting it out there. This is who I am,
Yes.
right?
Yeah. And you know what I love too about a new year is, you can choose. This is something I was just talking about in a recent episode, but you can choose what you want 2024 to look like for you. You have the whole year ahead. It's a clean slate, whether it is relationships, like you mentioned, or your career or your fitness and health, but you get to choose what you want it to look like. And to your point, you got to take some scary steps. You got to be challenged a little bit, but like you really have so much choice in this to kind of decide what's ahead of you and what you want out of the next year.
Think about who you are and what are the words that go with that. Brave, strong.
Mm-hmm.
Write down those words and make sure what you do is brave and strong in that year, and you will achieve that. And yeah,
Yeah.
2024 can be whatever people want it to be for them, as
Mm-hmm.
long as they're willing to go to scary places to get it.
You make such a good point because I'm sure, people hear, when people listen to podcasts, sometimes, you hear something and you process it and it kind of goes in one ear and out the other. But if you're just driving or if you're walking right now as you're listening to this, really think about that. It's a really great point. Like, what adjectives would you use to describe yourself? Like, what would you choose? And then, I guess you choose, like, is that what you kind of want to is that who you are? Is that what you want to be? And then make that happen. Like, make those, if
Say
it's
it and then
brave.
put it into action.
Yes. Yep. I love that. That's a good exercise for anyone. Now, speaking of exercising, um, if somebody, let's say, okay, we're coming out of this holiday fog, um, is there any kind of maybe like where do people start? Like where I know you said you got to walk before you run, and you got to take these baby steps. But are there maybe any exercises or equipment that you would recommend to kind of get started? Like where do people where do they go?
Starting off that new year is pretty scary because you'll be, if you're walking into a gym and it's
Mm,
packed, especially
yep.
during, as a fitness trainer, I love January because obviously I get very busy. But also as a fitness trainer, I hate January because it's so busy with people not being specific about their workouts. I
Yeah.
find that I still take group classes. Like I
Hmm.
said, I was in the city this weekend and I did a group class. I could take group fitnesses at all different studios for the rest of my life and be the happiest person.
Hmm.
And the reason I became a fitness trainer is because I believe in the value of that. I believe in not meandering around the gym and seeing something that you think might be good for you and doing it, but
Hmm.
finding a fitness trainer in a group fitness or personal training, they're both wonderful. Because if it's not social and it's not fun, and if you
Hmm.
feel like you're wandering the gym alone, I can't imagine you're going to get much longevity out of that new resolution. So I suggest making new friends, which is a wonderful aspect of group fitness, and taking classes. And then if you're like, oh, I don't want to do anything in front of anybody, I don't do that. Fitness trainers are great. I love working with other personal trainers on my own fitness. I have my own goals. So the value of somebody who knows what they're doing, A, keeps you safe. B, if they're good at it, they keep it fun. And C, you need somebody to hold you accountable, not just in January. Build a community, right? Like, it takes a village.
Absolutely. Yeah.
They say it takes a village to raise a child. It takes a village to raise anybody to anything.
And that's a great point because, the gyms are, they are going to be busy this time of year. This is crazy. And people feel so compelled and like, that's the answer. I have to go to the gym. And maybe it's your thing, maybe it's not. But if you're just walking around, trying to figure stuff out, like that's intimidating in itself. But also, what's the longevity there? Like there's no sense of community.
Go to a spin class and look to your left and right. These ambitious people are also there with you, right? Don't make it weird, right? You don't want to stare. But just say, hey, my name is TJ, and that was a hard class, wasn't it? And make a friend. In these times, like, who could not use an extra friend, right? And now if you're at a spin class or a fitness class or a lifting class or whichever one it's going to be, why not somebody who has the similar goals to you? Has similar goals at the fitness studio, right? Generically, to better ourselves.
And they're going to support you because they're doing the same thing.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. And I was talking about this on a recent podcast, but how even as adults, it's so hard to make friends, I feel like, as we get older. But, when you are an adult, it does get harder. So that's such a great like a great comment of, you can make friends at the studio, like people who are like-minded and have the same interests or, I think that's a great thing. Like just say hi, nice to meet you.
Be brave. It's scary to make new friends. Be brave. Specifically brave.
Oh, I love that. Awesome. So let me ask you this. I'm going to put you a little bit on the spot, but just talk about 2024 goals. You mentioned a running goal in there, but what are your goals maybe for this new year?
I've got so much coming up this year. I mean, with Lululemon, I've got so many fun events, and that's a great place where I've built a lot of community, and I feel, I feel very empowered by them as a fitness trainer. But so my goals this year, so I'm going to be doing the marathon. And then last year I did a bike ride. It was 300 miles. It started in Saratoga Springs and went all the way down to the city.
Wow.
Next year, and this is for Housing Works, that wonderful organization in the city. So it was terrifying. I had no idea what I was doing. People were like, yeah, well, you teach spin. You're on a bike all the time. I had no idea what I was doing.
Oh my God.
I didn't even know that my spin shoes fit in my bike pedals the day before the ride. I was so underprepared. And again, sure, if I had gone through it and just done it, I would have hated it. I would never do it again. But the community of people that I met doing that, right, was awesome. So this year, I want to be that buffer zone. So I want to take the TJ pre 300 mile ride and create a team of people who are well prepared, speaking from experience, for this next one, which is going to be in September, from Philadelphia to New York City.
Oh, wow. And how many miles is that?
I believe it's about 204 miles. It's somewhere around there. I don't have all the information. Don't quote that. But that you'll see my journey on there. My other resolution, because I don't really believe in resolutions, but my goal is to get more sleep and rest.
Yes. Right? I'm right there with you.
Right there. It's packing your bags for the next day, being prepared, being intentional,
Mm-hmm.
that's a big challenge for me. My attention span is like, ooh, let's race, let's bike, let's punch, let's box, let's do, let's sign up for this fabulous fitness party and fundraise $1 million. And then sometimes I forget that that's all on top of one human body, and
True.
I have to take care of that. So my goal is for my own, sleep and recovery. I'm hoping Santa brings me a pair of like recovery boots this year, but we'll see. If you haven't checked those out,
boots. I don't even know what that is.
Oh my gosh, okay. So not a brand sponsorship. This is not a commercial, but I love the Normatec boots. They are these huge puffy boots that you put on. You look ridiculous. You lay back in your bed or a chair, and they fill with air and they massage your legs.
Kidding.
The first time I did it, I thought I was going to lose my ankle. And then it kind of just like popped. And I was like, that felt great. And I like walked out of there brand new. So that's the kind of self-care I'm talking. Maybe a new eye cream, stuff that makes me feel good.
Yeah. I love that. So I love that you have a goal. You have goals for self-care, because I talk a lot about self-care on the podcast. Like, it's all about that.
Well, that's why I listen to your podcast, is because I need that inspiration. I motivation, fine. I'll run whatever you tell me to run any day, but it's the come down from that is what I personally need to work on. And, I coach other people on it, but we have to walk our walk as well as talk the talk.
Yeah. Take care of yourself, like physically, mentally, emotionally, like you have to, because it's just, and I'm so glad that, these types of conversations have become so much more, I think, open. It seemed like before nobody would ever talk about mental health or, therapy or journaling and all these things. And it's like, no, like self-care is a thing. Like you can have 2024, be all about your self-care and prioritizing yourself and your own needs. Like there's nothing wrong with that. So, whatever that looks like to the people listening. But all right. So last question for you. Is there anything else, any other advice or tips or anything that's motivational quotes, anything that's worked for you, or anything you can leave the listeners with to kind of help them have a great year?
Yeah. You know what? We get bombarded with images about what our life should look like every day via social media. And again, we can want and desire things outside of what we have and who we are. But again, nobody ever got there by picking themselves apart. Nobody ever got there in the peak of their anxiety. It has to come from love. So I really hope that everybody who's listening can find a way to show yourself some love, right? And that may be some very Instagrammable breakfast or whatever you want to call it. But give yourself a little bit of love every day. And then if that seems to make you happy, add more of it. Love more happy. And I know that sounds like I should, print it out and put it on a block above a door in my refrigerator. But really, do stuff out of love for your body. Even if you don't currently love it, but you want to love it tomorrow, that counts.
I love that. If you want to love it tomorrow, even if you don't currently love it, you still got to take good care of it. That's great. Oh, TJ, awesome. This is so helpful. So we'll have to have you back sometime, because people are this is good stuff. Like people need to hear this. So.
If I still have legs after this marathon, let's do it live. Let's do it in person.
I love it. Well, TJ, thank you so much for being on the Piece Me podcast today. It's been wonderful to talk to you.
Thanks so much for having me. I hope everybody has a wonderful new year. Thanks, Lexy.
To be part of the exclusive listener group, hit the follow button on whichever podcast platform you're listening to right now. When you follow, you'll be the first to know about new episodes, so you can listen before anyone else. You'll also have quick access to the show, making it convenient to find for the next time. For more free content, join me on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and online at pieceofmepodcast.com.